What's up? This is Seth Mosley. You're with us on the Made It in Music podcast, and we've got a good one today. We've got my friend Zach Kale, and I'm going to intro him here in just a second. But before we jump in case you haven't heard, here at Full Circle Music, we have a ton of resources for all of you pursuing a career in the music industry. One of those awesome resources is our Song Chasers songwriting course. The course is a full-scale, complete look at the process of writing consistent hit commercial songs. If you want to become a professional songwriter, this course will be invaluable to you. I teach you everything that I know about songwriting in the course. Song Chasers course is $9.97, and once you buy it, you have access to it forever. To purchase the course, head to members.fullcirclemusic.com and click on Song Chasers. All right. Our guest today is Zach Kale. In just the past couple of years, Zach Kale has emerged as a successful Nashville songwriter and producer. First landed a cut with Florida Georgia Line. Once in Nashville, he signed a music publishing deal with Sony ATV Music and began working with hit songwriter Jon Nite. With Jon, he co-wrote the big hit I Hope for rising star Gabby Barrett, which was #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart for 9 weeks straight. Impressively, I Hope has also become a major pop hit, reaching top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and that is incredibly rare, by the way. Kale's developed a special collaboration with Barrett, and in addition to I Hope, he wrote and produced 7 more songs with Barrett for her debut album, Goldmine. Besides his work with Barrett, Kale's co-written songs for Keith Urban, Florida Georgia Line, Jimmy Allen, Chase Rice, Hootie and the Blowfish, Chris Bandy, and other artists. Zach is also an artist, helping found a super secret band who are rising stars signed to Universal Republic Records, who the world will hear about very soon. It's so secret that I can't even tell you the name yet. So I'm so excited to learn more about Zach's story. Zach, thanks for being with us today.
Man, my pleasure, bro. It's so good to be here.
Dude, you are the man. I've so appreciated getting to know you over the past few years, and you've been a part of some of our Academy events. Just so gracious to always come on and share your insights and your knowledge with people. So I'm really excited to have you here. So I'd love to just jump in. How did you get started as a musician and a songwriter?
Man, like my dad, I grew up in Alabama, and so my dad was a guitar player in a small band, and then he did like the wedding band stuff, but he was also a band director at the same time and music minister at our church and everything. And so I kind of like fell into it, right? You had no choice but to do music, and it honestly never felt forced either. Like my dad wasn't, we were always just playing basketball in the driveway. It was not a, hey, you're doing music type of thing, but I just fell into it naturally. And I just fell in love with playing guitar and writing songs. I remember when I first picked up a guitar, as soon as I learned chords, it wasn't, hey, what? And back in the day, it was like, man, that was a long time ago. So it was like, what Tomlin song can I sing? It wasn't that. It was, hey, what song would sound good with these chords, and I just kind of make something up. And it was, I'm sure it's pure trash, but it was also pure fun at the same time.
That's awesome, man. So what got you to Nashville? What was the journey coming to Music City?
Man, I growing up in Alabama, it was like an hour and a half south of Nashville. And my uncle used to produce this show called The Crook and Chase Show a long time ago in Nashville. And so I was used to Nashville my whole life, and I always there were times where I flirted with moving to Nashville, and it never really seemed like the right moment. I remember as in early 20s, I remember driving down Music Row, and for people like Music Row isn't Broadway where all the bars and all all the honky tonks are. Like Music Row is kind of a tucked away hidden street of 2 streets, where just people they're just writing songs every day. And at least before 2020, they were writing songs in those houses together every day. And I remember driving down that strip at one point and just thinking, man, like, how do you get in the door? How does someone in here hear your songs? And so I didn't move then. I didn't move years later. It was almost a decade and a half before we really moved to Nashville. And it was, I'd been writing with some friends in Nashville at years prior, and a song that we wrote that didn't even have a demo, didn't even have a work tape from your phone. Turned out it was on a Florida Georgia Line album, and it made us pick our head up a little bit and go, wait, can I actually write songs? Like, can I do this at a professional level? And I think the Florida Georgia Line song was maybe the 8th song. It's in the first 10 of songs that I've ever written. So I was like, maybe maybe I actually can write a song. And so we did. We decided we'd give it 6 months and go from Atlanta to Nashville every other week, and write and see what happens. See if God opened any doors, see if he closed any doors. And we were totally fine with it. Like if he said, no, I don't want you to write professionally, it was fine. And we had a good job. We loved where we lived in Atlanta, but we decided it was very clear that was an open door to come to Nashville. And so we picked it up with that Florida Georgia Line song.
That's awesome, man. So first of all, that's incredibly rare that one of the first 8 songs that you wrote, is that literally like first 8 songs ever, or like first 8 country songs?
No, I think I think I've done the math. I think it's like 8. I mean, I think I had probably 7 songs that I really wrote on like my album. And I think that was just one that maybe the first one that and when you first do an album, you don't know anything about like making songs great. You just do you're like, I need 7 songs in an album. I write 7 songs,
Right.
And so if it wasn't 8, it was 9 or 10. And I wasn't trying to write necessarily country that day. We just sat in a room, and I remember just even standing on the balcony. It was because I wrote it at Big Loud, which is a publisher here in Nashville. And I stood on the balcony of Craig Wiseman's office. And Craig Wiseman's written songs like Live Like You Were Dying and The Good Stuff. And just, I mean, I think he has like 25 or 26, maybe even 30 plus number ones now. And I was sitting on Music Row on his balcony, looking at the cars go by, probably a decade later, and just thinking like, man, I didn't even try to get my song heard. Like, this is just, that's the way it happens sometimes, is when you stop trying in your own might, some things kind of happen. So,
yeah, that's amazing, man. Well, yeah, as I said, that's incredibly rare. And how did you, first of all, get connected with Big Loud, and who were you writing with at the time that was at Big Loud?
I think when I first got to Atlanta and I did that pop rock soul album, someone was like, "Hey, you need to sign with BMI." And I didn't. We even joke about it these days. Like, who'd you sign with? Sign with BMI or ASCAP or CSAC. It's like it's not a record deal. It's not a publishing deal. That's just they just collect the money that if a song makes, And so, but I did. I know that if you have big dreams and you go, maybe one day this song makes money, and someone said sign with BMI, and so I went with BMI at the time, and there was a guy named Dave Clausen there he was just so good to me, and he played that really bad album in my head for Seth England, who's still at Big Loud, and Craig Wiseman heard it as well, and he said, I think we should bring this guy up and let him write with some of our writers. And Craig is, he's a good friend now, and he's brilliant. I think he sees into the future a little bit. And he saw like, there's this guy from Alabama who's in Atlanta doing hip hop type of, pop driven stuff. If we combine these Atlanta writers with these Nashville writers, you can create something that is like unlike anything that anyone's really heard in country. And that was in 2008 and 9. So you think in 2012, Florida Georgia Line comes out with Cruise, which is something no one's ever heard. It has like the hip hop and the country thing. And so I think Craig saw that kind of coming, but, or at least he felt like there was a shift in the way that country was being written. And Craig just loves doing something that no one's done before. Like he just gets a kick out of that, And so we, when we were writing, he would bring me up, and like I would stay like 2 weeks. And I would write with, I wrote with Kanan Smith. I wrote Grow Old with Florida Georgia Line, for Florida Georgia Line with Kanan Smith, who is another country artist now and a really successful country writer. And so, it was just publishers back in the day, or like guys that had publishing deals that I was writing with. And now I just, wrote it with Kanan Smith. And then I went back to Atlanta, and I didn't think about it any more about coming to Nashville when, this brown-headed, brown-eyed, green-eyed girl, kind of walked into to a church that I was working at, and we got married about 9 months later. And it's like, well, who cares about writing songs in Nashville? This girl's amazing, And so we started our life there and didn't even look back.
That's awesome. So, were you drawn to writing country music over other genres, or how did that sort of evolve in finding your lane?
In high school, I felt like I was like the anomaly a little bit. Like I was in band, but I played on the basketball team. I played like sports. I love sports to this day. Like, thank God that sports are back on TV right now. And so I played sports, but I also would go down the road listening to like Les Mis, like blaring Les Mis, like out of my old like Ford Ranger truck or my dad's Ford Ranger truck. But then I would shift and I'd be like, oh, let me listen to that Brad Paisley song on the radio, So it was like all these ideas kind of coming together. So I wasn't necessarily drawn to only country. It was everything, It was I would listen to Brad Paisley, and then I would listen to Harry Connick Jr., and then I'd listen to Les Mis, and then I would listen to some other classical thing, and then a Stevie Wonder album, then Ray Charles, and it was a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, I mean, the first time that I heard your stuff, I think it was at one of our Academy events or something. I was like, who in the world? Like, this guy's, I don't know why you're not an artist. Like, or I at least I didn't know you were doing it at the time. Your voice is just incredible. So, man, I just think what you do naturally and what comes out of you is amazing. So
I appreciate it, man. There's just, I think, even to like speak on that, there's so many artists that come into the studio all the time that it's their dream. It's everything they've built their life around. And one of my greatest joys is giving them great songs to go live their dream. Them be a part of it. Like it gets me going in the morning. Like every day, it's like, man, what can we do? Can we change someone's life today with a song? And it's just crazy. We get to make that stuff up. Like for Gabby with I Hope, like we made up a song that changed her life and it changed our life. And so I've never really, even though, yes, I am doing the artist thing, it's still not something that I'm like, if this all falls apart, it's going to wreck me. I don't care. Like I care enough about songs and I care enough about the project, but I don't care enough about it because I know that I can always have great friends who are much more talented than I am, that we can give them great songs,
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to look at it. So how often are you co-writing versus writing solo?
No, I'm mainly, if I'm writing solo, I do, song starts where it's like, hey, we have this verse and chorus idea, and then just kind of go into the room and we finish it. I don't really write much by myself these days. It is truly a collaboration, a co-writing thing, because I think there's value to writing, a solo song, by yourself. But I mean, so many times in my life, I'm just better because great people are around me, so I want to trust those people around me. But I do know that when I do start a song on my own now, it's funny when you're not stealing from anyone, but when you have those people who have written with you on a consistent basis, when you write by yourself, they're kind of still in the room because their instincts, there's been enough times when I've been coming up with an idea that Jon Nite, who, I'm with at Sony, would go, but what if we did this? So, if you start a song on your own, right when you get to that moment where you like something you're doing, you always have that guy or some other girl in the back of your head going, hey, but what? I don't know. It needs more emotion right here, right? This isn't a true feeling. And, so yeah, it's all, if it's even writing solo, it feels like still co-writing. I'm just not going to put their names on it.
Yeah, man, tell me some of the stuff, just since you just brought up Jon, Jon, in case our listeners don't know, is just an incredibly prolific country songwriter. I don't know how many number ones he's had at this point, but
He would say he doesn't know.
He'd tell you he doesn't know. Yeah, exactly. So maybe tell us that story. How did you get connected with him?
Man, it was, I guess it was 2018, maybe. Well, yeah, maybe 2017. I just started. I remember I moved to town, even with the Florida Georgia line thing, right? We moved to town, and I was working at a place that moved me to town. I wasn't writing songs, and that thing just fell apart. It just fell apart, and then there was a publisher who had offered a pub deal that fell apart. So we moved to town with a cut, sure, but we moved to town and it all fell apart. And so we were going, oh my gosh, like I picked up my daughter from her junior year of high school in Atlanta and I brought her to Nashville with my wife. And now we're just sitting here going like, what do we do? And I've always looked up to guys, especially dude, Seth, like you, like guys who are amazing songwriters who are even more amazing if you can be producers. And like, and I was noticing over my just a couple of years in coming back and forth to Nashville, that the people who were consistently getting in the good rooms were the guys and the girls that could produce songs at the same time. It didn't need to sound like it was on the radio, but some sort of vibe that they would just give you in the room. And so I thought to myself, like, if I can figure that out, if I can figure out how to produce, man, that would be massive. And so I'd never done it though. And so I remember the first day of January, I guess it was 2017. It could be 2018. I think I just celebrated 2 years with Sony, but I'm sitting in the studio. The room was different than it was back then, but I'm sitting in the studio that I am in, or that I was in now. And I remember thinking, how do I make something go boom, boom through those speakers? Like, how do I make the software actually make a kick drum do something? And so I just spent about 90 hours a week in that studio figuring things out. And from that day, from January 1, I think we wrote that year, I wrote and produced I Hope, which was, I mean, it's sitting currently as we're having this talk, it's like 7 on the top 40 pop hits, and so
Unbelievable, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, man. And so during that time, I'd worked with Dane Schmidt over at Sony, and he said, he's like, hey man, I can only really sign track guys, right? Like that's what I need right now. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm working. I would send him stuff every couple months. Like he'd be like, it's actually like he's a guy from Minnesota. So he's just there's no like filters. Like, it's actually not bad. It's not bad, Zach. Just keep working on it. And by June or so, he's like, it's actually pretty good. It's pretty good. And so he said there was one day he sent me a text. He's like, hey, can you write with Jon Nite? He's wanting to sign a track guy. And I was like, who's Jon Nite? I really didn't know who Jon was. I researched the people that I write with right before I write with them, unless they're like a hero of mine, and Jon is now, but and so Jon walked in the room to write that day, and we became friends before we ever wrote a song. And it just felt like this is just a brother. This is another soul that we just do life together for sure,
That's awesome, man. And for people out there who don't realize, there's a lot of creative ways that songwriters can do publishing deals with people. And this is what you would call a joint venture where, Jon has been with Sony for a while. He brings a guy like Zach in to the fold. And so there's kind of a shared publishing arrangement there. Is that kind of what it looks like?
Yeah. It's like he gets cut in, but that's definitely the simplest way of doing that. And it's great. It gets to, he gets to develop a new writer that will ultimately, hopefully, make him, money one day. And I definitely want to do the same thing because he's brought a lot of, man, I've learned so much from Jon. Just without, and it's not like he's just like, okay, now on this chorus, what we will do. It's not a teaching thing. It's just like in the church world, we would actually call it discipleship, right? It's like watching someone just do something the right way for a long time, and it's just, you just consistently watch him do it in the room without him teaching, and you're just learning. So
it's more caught than taught.
It really is. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's so many things in life, right? We could talk for hours on that about, how to, how to be better just by watching and listening.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Well, shout out to Jon. So when you write a song, how much do you focus on like who the end intended audience is? Are you thinking about that at all? Is that play into the process?
Yeah, sometimes it does. There's luckily most of the time these days, like there's an artist in the room, so it's like that's the person. Obviously that's the person that we're trying to write a song for. If it's Gabby Barrett in the room, then we're like, all right, she has a very specific lifestyle. She has very specific filters that songs need to go through. So we're clearly writing specifically for her. But there's sometimes, where like the other day I was writing a song with Josh Thompson and this guy named Bobby Pinson. And like, we were like, all right, well, this chord progression sounds just like something Chesney would do. So like we wrote a song for Chesney, and it's honestly, if Chesney doesn't do it, it's probably a crash and burn song. Like it's probably just goes, we throw it on Song Mountain or toss it on a hard drive, and it just lives the rest of its days there, and no one ever hears it. And that's fine. But yeah, we there are days that we write toward an artist, just not as much as we probably. I don't know. I love writing with artists in the room. It's a lot of fun, and it does help. It does help, kind of up the cut percentage.
Right. Well, that's what I was gonna say. What's the like? How often are you writing just with writers for pitching versus like writing with the artist?
Um, I would say it's a probably 75 against 25%. You know, it's like I'm in the room with artists 75% of the time. You know,
Yeah.
some days, like the other day, I was writing. It was like there were three of us. I think it was like Jaron Johnson, who's in the Cadillac 3, and then this amazingly talented guy that you need to interview at some point named Breland, and then me, and we were like, well, all right, so who's going to get the song? Who's like, we all love this. Who's going to get to cut this song? Maybe we just do it together, or whatever. And so some days you get lucky like that, but those have actually the ones where there's a lot of artists in the room. You go like, well, dang. Like I wrote a song with another duo the other day, and I was like, wow, I kind of hope they don't do this song because I'd love to do this stuff.
That's good. That's the feeling you want whenever you write a song. So
Yeah.
Which kind of brings me right in my next question. How do you know when a song is done? Like when it's time to stop revising and just put it down?
Man, I'm such a perfectionist. I would tell you it's never done, but like, I would tell you, like, if we were all just able to, on this podcast, sit in the living room and listen to Florida Georgia Line's Grow Old, I would pick apart every melody. I would pick apart like every landing of every phrase and go like, this isn't done. That's the reason there wasn't a work tape or no demo. Like I didn't think the song was done. So I've learned over the years now to just trust that it's actually good enough, and that sounds terrible to a perfectionist, but like you can start like, I mean, I'm glad they stopped painting at some point in the Mona Lisa, or it was just going to get weird. You know what I mean? Like, and so it was just perfect when it was good enough, So, and that's a tricky balance. It's something I've learned over the years. And, the other day I wrote a song. We thought it was a great song, and it was just, there was something about it that was still rubbing me wrong, and a pretty significant thing, like a whole entire verse. And I was like, no, I think it needs another second verse. And so I wrote the second verse, texted it to the writer. And the writer was like, that's totally what it needs, And so I think if it's something that's like really like irking you a little bit, go back and filter it. But yeah, I think it can be done way quicker than I would give it, at least.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when a lot of people have this sort of perception about when they sign a publishing deal, it's like off to the races. That sometimes is the case for writers, but it sometimes isn't. When you signed your deal with Sony, was that like, boom, we're how did that change your career basically?
Well, for me, again, I think I just got really lucky. I mean, because I've seen, there's several of us that signed to Sony at the same time, there were different people that they were working with at Sony, and we've all had different careers, so I think signing a pub deal is similar to, when someone leaves college. You can look at it like, okay, well, I got a degree now, therefore I know everything. Mm-hmm. Or you can look at it like, I got a degree, now I know nothing, and I have to go learn how to actually do the trade that I'm, that I just got a degree to do, And so I think you have to look at it like that, of like, if you're always put yourself in like a posture of learning, then you kind of cuts the pride out of like, I can do this. If you think like I can write a song all the time and I'm amazing at it, then you're probably not actually, it's hard. So I think once you get a pub deal, it's definitely not off to the races. I mean, there are those exceptions and anomalies. And I'm very thankful I'm one of them, but man, those like, it's still not an overnight success. There's decades of work and hardship and all that stuff. But I think once you sign a pub deal, that's the time to really get working, because that's when your team is around you. And you can really capitalize on the momentum of it, but you have to become a better songwriter. You have to write with writers who are at the time when you first sign. You're not going to get in the room with Ryan Tedder from One Republic. Like when you first sign a pub deal, you're going to get in the rooms with people who are very good because they have a pub deal, but they may not be at the level of a Ryan Tedder yet. And so you need to learn what you can learn from them. And then hopefully you get better and better and better until you're in the room with a Ryan Tedder. I've never been in the writing room with Ryan Tedder. So
Is that on the list?
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of Tedder. I think he's amazing. Yeah, it is on the list. There's a lot of people that are on the list, and I'm coming for them.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, I'm surprised you haven't already. Probably this year.
Yeah.
So let's talk about I Hope. I just, that song, it's one that when we're writing with a new artist it just gets referenced so often now. Like, how does that feel to have written a song that like other people are like listening to and saying, man, we need to make it sound like that or feel like that?
Wow. Well, I didn't know that. So I didn't, yeah, that's crazy that people.
And I'm sure it's not just me.
Wow. Well, yeah, no, that's crazy. It feels amazing, to know that people are, trying to chase something, and that's what you do. Like, which is kind of interesting. I heard an interview one time where it was like, I think it was Charlie Puth, and he was just like, when you start like trying to chase something that's on the radio now, you're going to miss it. But there is something with writing with a new artist that is and Gabby's exceptional. I mean, she's a true diamond that comes around like maybe once in a generation. Like the only other person that I know, and I'll get in trouble because I know there's so many artists that I work with now but like no one does what Gabby does. Like Gabby is truly special. Like that girl, like I Hope is maybe the first to third vocal take of the day after not singing and just handing her an SM7 in a fire hall studio at Sony. It's like,
is that the final vocal?
Yeah, it's the final vocal. It's like, what are you doing? Like, and her phrasing, man, like the way she sits, like we'll be sitting in the studio and she will legitimately know. She'll go, "Hey, Zach, I didn't sing that phrase that's right there in that verse 2. I didn't sing like that. That's a little ahead of the beat. I didn't sing it there." I'm like, "Oh, man," and I'll be looking at the screen, I'm like, "I haven't changed anything." Like, and she'll like, "No, you did." And I tell you, 9 times out of 10, there will be something that shifted or something, and I'll be like, "Oh no, you're right. You're totally right." And it will be microscopic, And so there's just not many people out there like Gabby, and I think I saw it early, and she's like a daughter to me now. I think she's just the best, and so. But yeah, it's crazy to be in a room with a new artist, and because there's dreams there. They haven't been just beat down by the industry. There's so many artists that walk in the room like, "Well, I gotta respond to my Instagram DMs," and it's like, man, you're getting to live your dream right now. And I know it's like, just because you live your dream doesn't mean that there's not tons of work. You know what I mean? Like I live off songwriting, but there's been times where I do still 90-hour weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's crazy, man. I'm glad that people are coming after that song. Come after it, man. We need some great songs out there.
Yeah. Well, man, it's so fresh, and that's so awesome to hear that. Yeah, that's literally just, it sounds like it's just so instinctive for her. And I remember the first time I heard the vocal, I was like, holy cow, like this is today's, Carrie Underwood or whatever comparison people want to make, but
yeah.
It's just that vocal that kind of comes along, like you said, once in a blue moon. So,
yeah.
But the other thing I want to point out with that is, when you started working with her, nobody knew who Gabby Barrett was either.
Right.
It was like, so many people when they're starting out, they think, well, I need to upgrade the rooms that I'm in. How do I get in the room with FGL or with whoever, fill in the blank,
right?
Or Carrie Underwood. And
Sure.
what they don't realize is like the best thing you can do when you're on your way up is like find those artists and you partner with them, you champion them, you become their people.
Oh yeah.
So was that kind of the case with Gabby, where it's you're investing on the front end, right? Hoping that something's going to pay off.
Yeah, you totally do, man. I think you find the diamonds and you do your best to shine them. It's it's hard because like there are for every Gabby, there's 10 people that I was in the room with, especially early on, that it's like, I mean, just didn't do anything, but that's fine. Like the investment is worth it. You don't see biceps every day. You do a curl, you know what I mean? Like you get them over, over time. I mean, like mine just pop immediately. Like
yours just, I was going to say, you have that special thing. That's gift.
Yeah, I mean, what's because of the Olympics. I trained so hard for the Olympics back in the day. Never made it because I'm about 3'4". I think, man, like it is like finding someone you believe in. It is like, even if I feel like so many writers get frustrated when they're like, I'm just not in the big rooms. Like you said, like, how do I get in there with Garth Brooks? Like, everyone shoots for like, you're not in the room with Garth Brooks because you probably don't deserve to be in the room with Garth Brooks. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not in the room with Ryan Tedder because I don't deserve to be in the room with Ryan Tedder yet. And that moment may come, it may not come, but the more Gabbies that I help become Gabby Barretts, it just makes the chances greater that I get in the room when Ryan Tedder's making an Adele,
Well, very, very well said. Very well said. What's the best piece of advice you ever received regarding your songwriting? And it could be something from Jon. It could be something from your publisher.
Ooh, the best piece of advice. I reference back to Jon a good bit, but what I felt like I used to be early on, like I can put emotion into a song. I mean, I hope it was a joke, kind of like we were trying to write a different song. We were really, truly trying to write someone like I will always love you. Like, it wasn't someone cheated on you. It was just like, we broke up and like, but I still love you and I want the best for you. And so we try to get that need rhyme, like everything you're ever going to need. And I spun around the chair just joking. It was like, and then I hope she cheats, because and then it like hit this like moment where it was like, oh wait, that's a real emotion. Like that is a true, genuine emotion. That is not like, hey, I'm up on a tractor and it feels pretty cool and breezy up here and I like it. It wasn't just a random thing. It was just like, man, that hit us all. And even as a joke, it became pretty serious pretty quickly, and so Jon has like encouraged me over the years to write a real emotion. You know what I mean? Like, and I can't, like, there's not, well, okay. So like, yeah, like when you have an idea that you're trying to deliver, if you say it in a real way, like of just like, man, it's a hard day at work. But if there's a different thing of going like, I can barely make it through. Like there's a different way. And just even that's a terrible way of saying that. But like, it's a bad day at work. I barely made it through. Like there's a real emotion and I barely made it through. That it's like, no, I feel that person's angst a little bit, that like they're in a painful place or they're in a happy place or whatever it is. And I think over the time of like, how do you put those ideas in a song, and put feelings in a song. There's so many times, especially writing country, where it's like, we'll get to the second verse. And I've heard it said so many times where they'll go, it doesn't really matter what we say. It just matters how it feels before we get to this chorus again. And those, I mean, if I was saying that 3 years ago, I'd be like, dude, it does matter what we say. But when you're writing with guys who have, 20, 30, 40, 50 number ones, when they say that, it's like, well, they're probably right, And so it is how to make an emotion out of something, as opposed to making it clinical and sound the same way,
Yeah. So good. That's great advice.
Same goes with melodies too. Like, does it feel right? Not is it right? Does it feel right?
Yeah. Yeah. So good. A couple more questions and then we'll jump into our lightning round.
Sure.
What advice would you have for somebody wanting to become a professional songwriter?
Write songs. Write them all the time. Write them with people who are better, worse, same. Like just write songs. It truly is. And I didn't understand it when I first got to town. Like, it used to frustrate me a little bit when Dane over at Sony, he'd be like, "Yeah, man, it's getting better. So keep writing. They're not hits yet, but keep writing." I'm like, what are you talking about? This song is a monster, And it's like, and if I listen to that song today, I'm like, oh wow, that song was terrible. It just it lacked all the things that would make a hit, And I definitely know what's a hit these days, because I've had one and only one. I have no idea. Like I'm still improving, And so, but I would say just write. Like, I mean, for sure, write all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you definitely know what a hit is, because that that hit is bigger than a lot of most other hits out there. So,
oh man, I appreciate it. It's fun.
You definitely know. So, hey, in closing, if there's one thing you could say to your younger self before you broke into the industry, what would that be?
Listen more, talk less. It has nothing to do with writing. It's just, just listen more, talk less.
Very, very well said. All right. Well, you ready to jump into the lightning round?
Yeah, let's do it.
What is a song that you loved when you were growing up?
God, there's so many. All right. So it's a lightning round. So Ain't No Sunshine.
Favorite fruit?
Apples every night.
What's the best city you've ever been to, lived in, or visited?
Nashville. It's the one.
Favorite fast food restaurant?
Jesus Chicken. Chick-fil-A. Come on.
Nice. And what time of day are you most productive?
From about midnight to about 3 o'clock in the morning. I rarely do it, but that's when I'm most productive.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's when the whole duo project birthed. Like it was in those times, and that's when our best songs have been written.
You have kids, right?
Well, yeah, she's 20. She'll be 20 in November. So yeah, so she's off at college, and it's late. I don't do it like rarely. I mean, rarely. I think I did it. Today's Thursday, Tuesday night. So I'm still catching up. Like I'm still very tired from it. But it's like I got to write the next morning. You know.
Did you have like a scheduled midnight write, or did you just get up and you're like, man, I feel like doing this thing? No,
it's like, sometimes someone will FaceTime. It's like, hey man, I have this idea. What are your thoughts? And, or can you hop on? Like that night, it was like, hey, you were on this song when we were writing it. I think the vibe is off. Can you come up with would you just show us the vibe it needs to be? And then showing the vibe becomes cutting the vocal. And it's like, then,
next thing you know, it's 3 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can't go to sleep. You're like, well, I'm up now.
I'm going to watch some Tiger King.
Yeah. Again.
That's awesome. Hey, well, we're gonna be doing our deep dive. As we said, you definitely know what makes a hit song because you've been a part of this monster hit with Gabby Barrett. We're gonna be doing our deep dive on hit songs. So if people are interested in checking that out, they can head over to madeitinmusic.com, sign up for the deep dives there, and it will be right there. Zach, Kale, thanks so much for being with us on the Made It Music podcast.
Yeah, bro, my pleasure.
What's up? Thank you for watching the Made It in Music podcast season 3. If you want to check out any of the other episodes from season 3, click up here. And we talk in the show about these really cool deep dives with all this extra bonus content. And if you want access to all of those, click here.